All right, today I'm with Cabel McElderry. Cabel, how you doing?
Good, man. It's been a while. It's nice to reconnect.
We go way back. We've worked together on like lots of things. I think, the fitness shows and bodybuilding. If you want to tell our viewers a little bit of what you I guess your career, where you've been, what you're doing now, all that kind of stuff,
My,
right?
my very sordid history, sure. So, in fact, actually, in preparation for today, I brought out a little nostalgia. I still have my favorite jacket here from One to One Fitness, which I'm sure we'll talk about lots. And then, great segue to the projects we worked on. I don't even know if you noticed behind me, like my favorite project is right there and resides, very emotionally important to me here in my office. So, for those of you that wouldn't know who I am, I spent a lot of years in the fitness industry, so I owned 5 different personal training studios. Drew, you played an important role with this project, which I'm sure we'll talk about, as it's still one of my favorite projects that I've ever done in my entire life, to be honest with you. And beyond the gyms, I became a business consultant, so I've actually helped open, save, and operate more than 300 gyms at this point worldwide on 4 different continents. A couple of years I spent in flying back and forth between Calgary and Los Angeles, and lived and worked in Chino Hills, California as the Chief Operations Officer for the Fit Body Bootcamp franchise. During my tenure, we went from about 200 franchise units to almost 750 franchise units when I left Fit Body and came home, believe it or not, because I missed 4 seasons. Shortly after I came home, which was around 2015, my first son was born in 2016, which is a true miracle. We weren't supposed to be able to have children, so I have 2 miracle boys at this point. And after my son was born, my gyms were quite a ways from where I lived, and I decided I didn't want to travel to my businesses anymore. So interestingly enough, I sold all my gyms in 2018 or so, 2018, early 2019. And most of us know what happened after that, which was very, very hard on the gym and fitness industry. So it was very fortuitous in that way. I'm now full-time in e-commerce. So during the latter stages of the gyms, we were looking at figuring out how do we sell physical products in the gym and outside the gym, which led me to learning to use my internet marketing skills to sell products online, largely on marketplaces like Amazon and Walmart. And ended up being headhunted by an education company out of Dallas a couple of years ago, and became their community director and kind of head of their coaching department before the company folded and went bankrupt and left about 2,000 students kind of alienated and abandoned. So we collectively took them on and launched a new e-commerce education company called Seller Tactics here about 2 years ago. So deeply involved with e-commerce education, deeply involved with e-commerce selling, and still with one common mission, helping people be the best versions of themselves and experience more, success, happiness, and prosperity in life. So that kind of catches us up to date. But your role was an important one through those years in we were promoting the bodybuilding events and being able to create those memories for people, because as obscure as the bodybuilding sport is, what was near and dear about it to me was seeing everyday people, master their lives and their bodies to get on stage and make these changes, and having those memories was important. And there's only one other video guy that I've ever worked with that I thought was as creative and talented as you are. And he was the guy that we had in the Fit Body headquarters in California. And you and Rob both, I think, have always had a great creative presence that helped communicate, what we were trying to deliver to people. No better example of that was Change, the documentary, which probably looking back for you now is so inferior compared to the things that you've done today. And the documentary, I think, was almost secondary. It was like the other cool stuff that we did, like the trailer and the ET interviews and stuff. Like you really helped mastermind and bring that to life, which is what made it such a cool experience for everyone that was involved. The clients, our team, and even all the people that came to watch it at the theater. Like it was pretty amazing.
We created a documentary, like a really cool project, but it was the marketing around it that really made that a really successful event and an asset, right, for you and your business.
Yes, it's not something at the time that anybody had ever done, right? And I think that's what That was what was great about the time when you and I worked together, is that we just found ourselves doing things that nobody had done yet, right? And that's what's cool, I think, is that we got to, we got to like lay a path that stood out. And I think that now more than ever, right? Like, we're so distracted and inundated with distraction that it's important to try to figure out how you can be intentional about the content that you're creating, especially in this age of like AI and stuff, where content is generally pretty easy to create. It's hard now to create content that's impactful enough, to stand out and get through the noise.
Yeah. Since we're talking about this and how we, we did a whole red carpet event premiere, maybe talk about your goals with the project, and then sort of the results. Did it satisfy or did it surpass? Like,
it's hard to look back at that project today with the same eyes that I would make a business decision today, right? Because I didn't know what I didn't know, right? So at the time, we didn't really plan that project in like a fiscally or financially responsible way that was attached to like an ROI or a goal that we wanted at the time, right? So it's hard to look back and say, hey, in the moment, it was a smash success because we exceeded this benchmark, because we just didn't have it, right? But the truth is, it's like there was so many great things that came from it that we didn't even know that we were planning, right? Like, the relationship with the team as a result of creating that experience for them, and really that memory for them that's like forever immortalized on places like YouTube. It's like what that did for our team culture, right? And what that did for us as a cohesive group going forward. Like I don't know that that's measurable, right? And if we do want to talk about measurable, interestingly enough, like, not that this would matter to maybe people elsewhere in the world, but here in Red Deer, when we did that, Galaxy Cinemas had just opened with Cineplex, trying to get a hold of their corporate headquarters to allow us, right? We could have easily went to the inexpensive theater, but we wanted that one, right? And what it took to actually convince them to let us do it, you might not even remember, but we had to agree to watch a full run movie after the documentary because they didn't think that it was worth it for them to give us the theater rental because of how it would disrupt the theater that night, or that nobody would attend. But in actuality, ours was the only sold out show that night, right? And we had more people attend our documentary than all the other movies that were combined in the theater that night. And on top of that, 80% of them left after the documentary was complete, right? That was a pretty big message to a company like Cineplex, even that's like, hey, this little project in this community, it was so much more than they expected. Or when we gave away, and we were talking about tickets on the radio, it's like, it's sold out. It's sold out in like minutes with the little bit of, public service announcements that we got through the radio. We weren't prepared and didn't have the tools to measure that at the time. But knowing what I know today and understanding what I do about business, it was like the reward of that was exponential, right? And whatever the cost was in the time, like, it's been worth 3, 4, 5, 10x that over the years. Even now, for me in my entrepreneurial career, it's a piece of content that I reference with pride, right? And as any entrepreneur goes, when you're trying to build or establish your brand and grow your reputation, it's like, that's what it's all about. Like, what are the things that you're most proud of that will stand out and make your message unique about who you are and what you offer. So it's crappy because I wish I could sit here and tell you that, hey, I made $4 million because of that documentary, but we didn't know how to measure that at the time. But I know that it's played a huge factor in all the other things that we've done after that.
That makes it makes me happy hearing that type of stuff. Like, attending the premiere alone was enough of a peak moment for me in my career. And I mean, part of it was like not just about me, but it's the cast, right? And like the inspirational stories that were in the film, it was like the life-changing work that they did in each of them. And it was like honoring their stories and like the journeys that they've been through. And so I, like, honestly too, like, it was a change in my career because it just really put in my mind, like, man, I don't just want to do like weddings or events, or I want to tell stories. I want to like be the filmmaker that can tell documentaries in a way that's going to change lives, that's going to inspire people, and sometimes I love what you're saying. It's like some of those things are just not quantifiable necessarily in terms of like monetary, but like when you're when you're inspiring people to do better, and that in itself is enough, right? That's really cool. Yeah.
I think today too, like, world and technology is in a better place too to approach this stuff more quantifiably, even than when we did those projects, or maybe even it was there when we did it, but we didn't know, right? And today I think there's a better opportunity to do that, by even just being intentional about thinking, what are we developing this content for? YouTube is great because you can measure content by views and subscribers, right? And I, like, at this point, as hard as it is to get going on YouTube today, I love YouTube because it's the gift that keeps on giving. Like, your content is immortal once it's there. If you can create the right content, then it is measurable over time, maybe more than ever before. In the world of e-commerce, we would calculate these things by looking at click-through rates and looking at ultimately, our conversion rates. So depending on how you're using your content, I think that there's a greater ability to do that now. Or even if I was to do a project like that again, I would have a much better idea of, okay, here's how or why or what we're going to do with it, with the expected outcome. I think the difference for me today too in what I teach my clients is that it used to be being regular with your content was critically important, which it still is, right? Like, it's still important to have continuity and consistency with your content. But because there's so much garbage content or so much quickly produced content out in the world today, I think it's really important to just be more intentional and be as consistent as you can be that matches that intention. So take the time to generate better content, even if it's less often. And then it also gets easier to attach these kind of goals to it, which makes it also easier to invest in good content. To speak towards the work that we've done, like, I would just reiterate, like, I hate to even compare you to Rob, because I don't know that you ever had a chance to meet him, but yeah. The two of you guys, you'll always hold a special place with me, because you guys just have a creative vision that most people wouldn't understand. That was always what was great about working with you, and I will always appreciate it.
Yeah. On the other side of it, it's really cool to have a client that values that creativity, and then it blossoms, right? It comes into something else, and then those big ideas turn into projects that make something. And then here we are talking about one of those projects that's like this kind of turning point in our lives or our careers that have launched into different avenues. Like, for me, it was like that was my first documentary, and then it came another one, and then another one, and it's cool to be able to dream, and then to take a chance on it, and then I guess work with it as it goes. And like, that first documentary, that was like, that's over 10 years ago now. I remember we did it like a couple other projects I've been looking through, just videos for the gym, like promotional and that kind of thing, like testimonials, like specific testimonials and things like that. Do you know if any of those like specifically had results, or like did you see more, I guess?
We always leverage that kind of stuff, but same thing, like I would do it so different today, but we totally knew the power of social proof, right? So again, it would be hard for me to assign like a dollar value, but it's like there's no question, because we just knew the value of promoting social proof, right? So, I mean, between me and my clients, I've spent more than $1 million on Facebook, but I wouldn't be surprised if we'd spend over $100,000 just with one-to-one fitness alone. And like, the majority of that would have been, around promoting social proof when it was allowed. It's not allowed the same way these days as it was then. Our results were pretty good. Like that, that studio here in Red Deer, we did more than $1 million in revenue annually for many years. We always looked at trying to spend a minimum percentage of revenue on marketing, even if it wasn't quantifiable, and then measuring, ultimately our business results. And we never steered away from those types of things. So we knew that it was valuable, even if we couldn't measure it. But again, I think it's not really a question mark as to whether it's worth it to invest in content or not, because it always is, right? It's always worth it to invest in content. And, if you're matched, like you and I just worked well together, because your vision was something that I didn't know how to bring to life, but it also, when it came to life, was a good representation of the vision that I had in mind. And I think that for somebody trying to look for somebody to work with to produce content, like, that's really what you're looking for, right? It is like, does this relationship serve me in terms of, does this producer end up with a finished product that matches my intention without me having to explain it a whole lot, right? Because I think that's the biggest challenge as a business owner and as an entrepreneur that I always face when I'm trying to figure out who I'm going to work with is how do I get you to bring my vision to life when I don't necessarily know how to put it into words. That's the value that I found in our relationship, and why I would encourage others to work with you is that, you know, generally speaking, it's like you are good at bringing my vision to life, even if I didn't know how to explain it. And I think that there's not a lot of people that can do that. Like, I've had a lot of poor contractor experiences where the outcome was useless and a waste of money. You know, like we're all reminded, right? Like you get what you pay for sometimes, and it's important to make sure you have the right relationships to produce and end up with the outcome that you want. Otherwise, it's just wasted investment. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's what I try to do is what is your problem, and what, you know, and understand where you're at and what you need, and then figure out how to tell the story that, you know, that helps others overcome it, right? Where do you think you'd be if, you know, if we didn't work together, or if we didn't have these projects or whatever, right? Like, yeah.
That's a good question. It would have been hugely impactful on the bodybuilding events in particular, right? Like, that was a piece of the events that a lot of people didn't understand the value of. It was even a hard sell with the athletes. Like, even they didn't totally get it until after the show. So it was a huge important piece of those events, right? And there's a reason that we got to promote them for almost 20 years. We were highly respected in that community with the type of event that we ran, right? And guys like yourself and Dave with photography and stuff, like, you guys were huge parts of that. It was a really important piece. As far as the gym goes, like, everything that we did with the gym back in those days was ahead of the curve, kind of, you know. Like, I was very fortunate to be tied into my coaches and colleagues in the US, because here in Canada, you know, we were just a few years behind. So be able to take their ideas and implement them, it put us ahead of the curve. So the things that we did with media back then, like, probably I would never advise a gym owner to spend money on radio and stuff today like we did back then, right? But it's like those pieces were so important. But I don't want to confuse people to think that, you know, investing in this kind of media today isn't as valuable, because it's even more valuable, because the noise, there's just too much noise. Like, there's 18 different social media platforms now, and, you know, between YouTubes and podcasts, and nobody listens to live TV and stuff anymore, right? Like, there's too many channels for you to try to get through to communicate with your audience. So it's like more important to have like highly intentional, like very, very high quality content, you know. And I think these are good things in a way, because I'm in the Amazon space now. Everybody seems to always ask, like, oh, is there still an opportunity on Amazon? I think it's too difficult now. It's too saturated. No, it's like, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, there will always be an opportunity. It's just that the barrier of entry gets higher as time goes on. Things become more sophisticated, which is good news for people that are serious about being successful, because you're going to take on challenges and do things and solve problems that other people get scared of and run away from. I would say that it was hugely impactful in where things have ended up today, because if we hadn't done those things, it wouldn't have opened the doors that have opened since to give me the opportunity to do the projects and stuff that I have, like being the COO and working with the gyms around the world, and being able to use what we learned to be able to leverage into them and teach them the importance of these things. Even as we're talking, I'm already thinking, like, why are you and I not doing more work together, right? And we should talk about some opportunities to do some of that with how we're aligned with media creation now, and see if there's a fit. Because what I said, like, you try to find that alignment where somebody can produce your vision without explanation is like priceless, right? So it's like, that's the thing that I would take away from this and say, that's the biggest ROI, is that you were just good at bringing that imagination to life without me being able to articulate it.
It's really cool that you're bringing that to understand, because like I never really thought of myself as like, you know, any like a pioneer in any type of you know, a field or something like that, but I guess what we did was exactly that, you know. And so, you know, like what I try to do now is to, you know, look at myself as a strategic partner. And I think like that's essentially the idea, is that we help one another out. It doesn't serve me well if I'm not working to help my client. Now looking back, this is really cool to think about. One idea led to another. This documentary led to another with another health business, and then that led to my big documentary, my feature documentary with our mutual friend Scott McDermott and our other mutual friend Darren Thompson, who again, like through the years, we've really like come to align with as like big thinkers and amazing people. And honestly, looking back too, like as far as what I maybe made on that project is kind of like a little more insignificant to like, what I would want to charge now. But at the same time, like, you got to start somewhere, right? Like, and so we kind of like, we looked at it as like, because it was a big film. Like that was the idea. It was like, it's a big film, but low budget, but let's just do it. Right. And it was kind of the same thing with Scott's film. It was like, look, I love the idea. I'm optimistic about it. Like, you're going to do awesome. And like, that one, turned into something completely crazy different because he crashed on, and it was supposed to be just like, hey, this is a cool film about a guy doing an amazing race. And, it's like, but then it's like, okay, it escalates into this other story. But if you were able to work together on just saying, okay, here's an idea, how can we just come together and make it happen? Yeah. I love this conversation to kind of see where our paths have kind of like gone, because we've both been successful in different ways, but you draw it back to that, to kind of like similar starting point where we've helped each other, blossom in these areas, right? So
it was really cool to watch The Warrior Code, by the way. Like it was really neat for me because it was a great film, and like so many people that near and dear to my heart, it was truly an amazing story. Like, I'm so glad that Scott got to tell that story because it's pretty powerful, right? And that story is going to change lives for a long time. For me personally, it was touching in a different way because it was like, I could see the remnants of change, right? Like I could see the remnants of what we started and what we did with that film in something that was like so light years beyond what we did with change, right? And it's like, it was really cool. Like even now I get kind of tingly and goosebumps because like, it was just a really cool display of like the growth that you achieved as an artist and a producer. And I think that's so amazing. As I'm sitting here thinking, like how would I measure this? How would I approach this today? Which honestly is maybe good for us to have in this context, because it's a discussion that we can have even off camera here and whatnot later. But it's like, how does it make sense to invest in this type of content? And I think now, we can all learn from this in the sense that like it needs to start with like, what is the outcome that I want? Right. So like what I would love to talk to you about later is like, how do we bring you and your abilities to promote and develop and grow the presence of our brand? Right. Yeah. And the big idea behind that is to create the message behind our brand. Right. And just to give everyone like a 30-second understanding, my kids were miracles that I mentioned before. And we could see on medical testing that eliminating chemicals from our lives in household products and stuff had a direct impact on our ability to conceive a child, which we weren't trying to do. We were trying to help my wife overcome her concussion symptoms. And the byproduct was that we got pregnant after doctors said we couldn't for 10 years. So that actually led us to launch our brand, which is like organic, chemical-free personal care products, right? So we knew we needed these products. Some were available in the marketplace, some weren't. So we went to work to create the things that we needed and solve a problem for our family that's now solving a problem for other families, right? And it's like, it would be really amazing to tell that story in the right way, right? And to be able to get critical mass with that story where people actually see, hear it, and understand it in a relatable way that allows them to look and identify with our brand to maybe try our products. And the simple thing for me is that I need media around specific products, right? I need to tell a 20-second or a 40-second story about a product that helps somebody understand why they should try that product, right? And that's something that I can measure through clicks and click-through rate and conversion and things like that, right? And it's so small that probably me or most people, could say, hey, Drew, yeah, I want to do a couple of short videos to promote this product or service that we can measure, which is going to help to quantify and lead to that bigger investment, right? If we can put one of those or two of those or three of those things together with some small wins that create a positive ROI, then it only makes sense to continue to grow the investment. And I would encourage other people to try to think of it the same way. Here's the big problem. Here's the big idea. Here's the one that we could solve today with what I could afford to risk, right? Risk or invest being synonymous today. What could we afford to risk or invest to produce this piece of content and see if we can get some traction with it? And for you as a producer, like it's probably a strategic opportunity for you to almost undervalue like those small pieces of content, because make it as easy as possible for people to do them, because if there's a positive ROI, it's a way to position that to bigger projects, right? Or to provide a roadmap that says we do this and then we do this and then we do this and we do this to work our way up the funnel.
And like I mentioned before, it's in my view, it's starting that opportunity to become the strategic partner.
Yeah,
build that relationship. So it's like, if we can work to do those little things, then you're gonna want to come back to me and say, hey, let's work on that bigger one, right? So yeah,
I would say probably, especially on a local and regional level, right? It's probably still educating the entrepreneur that says, here's how this small piece of content can contribute to your much bigger vision, right? So it's like the initial conversation needs to become, look, I just don't want to make you more money today. How do we grow and position your brand to create a lasting legacy? If you could do anything today to do that, what does that vision look like for you? And then to work backwards to say, okay, so here's a small piece of that vision that we can use to promote your current product or service. Here's how you're going to measure it, right? And here's how we're going to set a goal to produce a result, right? And it's like, I think if you could educate your customer in that way, how do they say no? Right. Yeah. And I think I think most business owners, especially small business owners, there's also the things that they don't have time to learn. Right. It's like in my experience as a business consultant, like these are the things that I'm always teaching people is like, how do you figure out what little thing can you do today to move the needle of your business? So for most business owners, they're so busy putting out fires that they don't have time to learn and identify these things. So I think for you to be able to come to them and sell a solution as opposed to a product, then I think it's a great relationship potentially for both parties. And anybody that watches this, if you're a business owner, it's like hopefully that even shifts your mind about how you think about things like this, right? Because that's the big thing that I see with business owners every single day.
Right. No, that's a good point. Yeah, it's take off the things that you just like you don't know how to do or you don't want to do, and give it to somebody else that can do it better than you. And yeah, it might cost a little bit, but then you've got time to do something else that's gonna help grow your business or give you time with your family or whatever, right? So yeah. These are great points, Cabel. I really appreciate you coming on here. I know you're a busy guy, so value your time spending us, chatting and I guess going down memory lane and I love that you've kind of piqued my memory in the sense that understanding how valuable these projects and opportunities that we worked on together were for both of us.